Welcome back to A Little Bit of Cheese, your daily bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast. I'm your host, Cody Depius. I want to thank you for being here with us once again today, as it is a somber day in the state of Wisconsin. I apologize to anyone who watched that Brewers game yesterday. As if you're with me, you have a very heavy heart, these are feelings that they're hard to describe because in reality it is just a game. But it's a beautiful game, and when you follow a team like that throughout the course of 165 games there, and then at the end, that's how things ends. It hurts. It really does, and it's hard to put into words, but I'm gonna try to here as you're with us today. Yesterday, the Brewers were facing the New York Mets at American Family Field for Game 3, the rubber match of a wild card division series. The Brewers looking to win their first playoff series since 2018. And it was a great game. It really was. In baseball terms, that was one of the best games I think I've ever watched. But where it just flat out sucks is that the team I was rooting for was on the wrong end of it. Tobias Myers got the start for Brewers. He pitched so good. That was as dialed in as I think I have seen Tobias Myers pitch. Of course, this is his rookie season. You know that there were nerves there. A rookie who 2 years ago, we talk about his story. It's one of the best that I've heard. But 2 years ago, he was 1-15 in Double-A and had a high 7 ERA. He was terrible. He's probably surprised that he even got picked up by a professional baseball team after a season like that. But Tobias, yesterday, in one of the biggest underdog stories here, he went 5 innings, gave up just 2 hits, did not give up a single run, did not walk anybody. He struck out 5. Looked incredible. Trevor McGill then had the 6th inning, looked incredible. Did not allow a base runner, he struck out 1. Nick Mears then came in, looked incredible. Did not allow a base runner. Struck out 2. Freddie Peralta came in out of relief. Looked incredible. Did not allow a base runner. And then in the bottom, it would have been actually the bottom of the 7th inning, right before Freddie Peralta got out there. It was still a tie ball game as the Mets, their pitching staff had done a spectacular job. Jose Quintana was incredible. Jake Budo came out there for the 7th, a guy who had pitched really well throughout the series and the season, mind that. And Jake Bauers came up to pinch hit for the Brewers and hit a solo shot to right that got that park pumping like you wouldn't even imagine. There are tweets out there. And following that, Sal Frelick hit a ball farther than probably any ball he's ever hit in his life for back-to-back home runs, and the Brewers took a 2-0 lead in the bottom of the 7th inning. And there were tweets out there. I believe Kurt Hogue had a tweet that said, "This is the loudest I have ever heard this ballpark." Like, that place was pumping. There was the excitement in that park around the state of Wisconsin. That game had been won, as it felt in that 7th inning. Back-to-back home runs from 2 guys who you would least expect it from, Jake Bauers and Sal Frelick. Sal Frelick had 2 home runs all season. He played an entire season for the Brewers and had just 2 home runs through the regular season. But then, right after his buddy Jake Bauers hits a go-ahead solo shot to go up 1-0, Frelick sees the first pitch and swings his heart out and sends that into the right field bleachers and has that park just going. And then at the end of that 7th inning, Pete Alonso, actually the first baseman for the New York Mets, dropped a pop-up in foul territory that would have ended the inning. The Brewers did not go and execute, but Pete Alonso, and this is a little bit of foreshadowing, had a very tough series. He's a very good hitter, a very good home run hitter for the New York Mets, but the last few weeks had been hitting horrendously. There were videos out, especially after he dropped that pop-up in foul territory, calling for him, that they didn't want him in New York. People were calling him a fat slob. Like, just that's where the story was for Pete Alonso. People were really down on Pete Alonso, and for good reason. He had hit terribly and then dropped a easy pop-up that would have ended an inning and could have led to an even greater deficit. But Milwaukee not able to capitalize and get new life after that. So it goes on to the 8th. Freddie Peralta comes in, shuts him down. The Brewers go down quietly in the bottom of the 8th, and then in the top of the 9th, the Brewers give the ball to their all-star closer, NL reliever of the year, Devin Williams, who had a 1.25 ERA through the regular season this year, and through 22 2/3 innings, had given up just 3 earned runs in all of those appearances in the 2024 season. And started off with a walk to Frankie Lindor, recorded an out of Mark Vientos, the next hitter, and Brandon Nimmo hit a single into center field. So there are 2 guys on, and then Pete Alonso is up. The Brewers just 2 outs away from going to the National League Division Series and winning their first playoff series since 2018. And Pete Alonso hit a 3-1 changeup over the right field wall, and the Milwaukee Brewers took a 3-2 deficit. Then Jesse Winker sticks his arm out and gets hit at the second pitch of the day that he saw. And to explain it here, when you're a hitter, and Jesse Winker, we kind of talked about him before. Not a fan of Jesse Winker. Nobody that's a Brewers fan should be a fan of Jesse Winker. He was hit in the elbow twice. He did not try to evade those pitches, which you're actually supposed to do when you're in the box. But Jesse Winker, with that big old elbow guard, likes to stick it out there and take his free base. And he did that and ended up coming around to score the 4th run of the game for the Mets as New York went up 4-2. And after he scored, he got up, grabbed his helmet, and gargantuan slammed it over home plate. His helmet shattered, and he just started screaming. It was, if you watched it and you're a Brewers fan, and at this point I had already muted the TV because the ESPN broadcast that was out there they were talking about the grit of this Mets team and how tough they were, and it was sickening to hear after watching that team have only 2 hits through 8 innings against the Milwaukee Brewers. And then in the 9th, it turns out, as reported by John Boy Media, Devin Williams is actually tipping his pitches. And for those of you that don't know, that means there was a way that he was positioning his glove for every single pitch that allowed the New York Mets to know what pitch was coming. And if you know what's coming, you have such an upper hand, and you could see that there in that inning for the Mets. Devin Williams only got 2 outs, and he gave up 4 runs. And that is something I had never seen from Devin Williams. And, of course, it comes on the biggest stage, and his playoff resume now is horrendous, to be honest. He looked really, really good in Game 2. Came in, pitched a 1-2-3 inning. So there was no suspicion that last night should have been anything different, that he shouldn't have shut them down like he had shut down essentially every single team this season. That there's no inclination that was a bad move to send out one of the best closers in all of baseball. But baseball did its thing. I said it before. You can't predict a single thing, and it's hard to watch. Now this is the 5th consecutive playoff that the Brewers have lost in the first round. They have not won a playoff series since 2018. Now I would like to go back and kind of talk, like, this is becoming, in my mind, I had a nightmare about this, actually, after Game 1 of that series. I think this team is actually cursed. Like, the chances of the way that these guys have lost these last 6 years of baseball for Milwaukee, the way that they have ended it's been so gut-wrenchingly uncommon. Like, every single one feels like an anomaly. And I don't want to break out the history book here for you, but up to this point, every single team that has eliminated the Milwaukee Brewers in the playoffs has at the least gone to the World Series and won their league. 81, it was the Yankees. 82, the Brewers went to the World Series. They lost to the Cardinals. 2008, they lost to the Phillies. Phillies went and won it. 2011, lost to the Cardinals. Cardinals went and won it. 2018, lost to the Dodgers. Dodgers ended up losing to the Boston Red Sox. In 2019, Brewers lost a one-game wild card against the Washington Nationals after Josh Hader came in with a 3-1 lead. They blew it. The Nationals went on to win the World Series. In 2020, the COVID year, Brewers blew it against the Dodgers, which Dodgers actually ended up winning the World Series that year. The Brewers had no chance even being in the playoffs, to be honest, but they lost to the Dodgers in the wild card, and Dodgers won the World Series. 21, Brewers lost to the Atlanta Braves after having one of their greatest regular seasons of all time. The Braves went on to win the World Series. In 2022, they missed the playoffs by one game. In 2023, they lose to the Arizona Diamondbacks in a wild card series, and the Diamondbacks went on to go all the way to the World Series after only having 84 wins in the entire regular season. So we'll see if this trend continues, but it has been so gut-wrenching to watch this area of Brewers baseball. And I will sit back, and I do understand that I am lucky to even be complaining about this. I could be a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. I could be a Cincinnati Reds fan. I could be a Seattle Mariners fan. Or I could have watched the Brewers anytime between 1983 and 2007 and watched them not even make the playoffs every year because the playoffs weren't expanded for a good chunk of time there. Like, the Brewers had been really bad for a really long time. And essentially, ever since I've started watching them, they have at least been competitive. And now the last 7 years of Milwaukee Brewers baseball they've essentially been on the brink of the playoffs, missing by just a game or two of getting into the playoffs or going to the playoffs. This has been a great run, and what an incredible regular season it was for the Brewers. They had so much that went right when nobody was even giving them a chance to do what they did. I made the podcast before, right after they had won the division and Jake Bauers hit that walk-off single into right to beat the Phillies. I said that this feels like a movie. But now after watching that game yesterday against the Mets, I've started to realize maybe it is a movie, but it's not the Brewers movie. And I'm waiting for the day that the Brewers get that movie season where they can win the last game of the season. And I've said it before, Moneyball is my favorite baseball movie of all time. The Oakland Athletics, they went to the playoffs that year. It was based on a true story of what the actual Athletics did. The Athletics, they don't win the World Series either. They actually lose in their first series as well. So it just goes to show where baseball, it doesn't care. Like, the baseball gods, they do not care about the storyline. And if they do, they certainly don't care about a good number of teams. Because there are a lot of teams that just... I was talking on the show yesterday. I was on ESPN Lacrosse, the sports lead, and the host, John Papadopoulos, is talking with Aaron Morse and I. Aaron and I were both big Brewers fans. John is originally from the East Coast. He's a Yankees fan. And he said, you guys are in your 20s. Like, you guys, you'll watch the Brewers win a World Series. And Aaron and I, we looked at each other, and we said, I don't know, John. I don't think you've watched enough Brewers baseball, which, yes, I'm very young into my life, but where it feels and how this team can get so high and then just have the craziest crap happen to them and watch them fall flat on their face in the postseason every single year, it just, I think there's a curse, which, yes, we've seen in baseball, curses can be broken. But right now, this is a low. And you can go back and if you want to understand the kind of emotions that are going throughout the Brewers clubhouse and Brewers fandom and Brewers beat writers and Brewers media personalities, go back and watch Devin Williams' press conference, of course, afterwards, which, of course, he's not going to be a happy guy. He owns up to everything. He said, quote, "Nobody should feel worse than I do." You can watch Christian Yelich. He had a conversation with Bob Uecker, Brewers' legendary radio play-by-play announcer, and you can see he was pretty torn up after he had that talk with Uecker. This may have been Bob Uecker's last year calling Milwaukee Brewers baseball. He had been the play-by-play guy for Milwaukee since 1970, and he has watched his team every single year fail to win the last game of the season. They've been to the World Series once in Bob's time here, and they weren't able to take it home. And they've had a lot of good teams as of recent, but just have not been able to get there due to whatever reason. Listen to the final sign-offs by Jeff Levering and Bob Uecker on the radio broadcast. You can find them on Twitter. They are this one hurts more than any Brewers loss. And I understand that this is the first round for the wild card, but for how fun this team was every single year, not every single year, this year, throughout the entire season, you could never count this team out. They were down until the 8th inning of Game 2. And then Jackson Churio, a 20-year-old kid, hits his second home run of the day to tie it up. And then Garrett Mitchell, a dude who has dealt with 3 main injuries in his first 3 years in professional baseball, hit a 2-run home run to go ahead and tie up the series and take it to a Game 3. And then to watch your rookie pitcher go out there and just pitch like his life is on the line and deal. And to watch him give the ball to McGill and Mears and Freddie Peralta, and to watch them shove, and to watch Jake Bauers, a guy who had been given up on by a lot of teams but was kept on the Brewers roster despite me saying that he shouldn't have been there all year, just continuously proving me wrong, coming up with the big hit in so many situations, going out there and hitting the go-ahead home run in the 7th inning of the playoffs, and then giving the bat to Sal Frelick, who had only hit 2 home runs the entire season. Watch him hit a ball further than he had ever hit a baseball in his life before, to go up 2-0, to give your ball then to your ace pitcher, Freddie Peralta, to come out of the bullpen in one of his first, I believe, bullpen appearances, I think, since 2021. It had been years since he had come out of the bullpen in any situation. And then to give the ball then to Devin Williams, who is one of the best closers in Brewers history, has been the National League Reliever of the Year, the Rookie of the Year, All-Star closer, to have just a 1.25 ERA during the regular season this year, to only allow 3 earned runs in 22 2/3 innings, and to pitch a perfect Game 2, 9th inning, a 1-2-3 save, to be on such a roll, and to have your emotions and your thought process already with Milwaukee on a plane flight to Philadelphia. That's where your mind is at when Devin Williams gets the ball in that 9th inning. You had seen Devin Williams, we talked about it on the podcast. He shut down Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. It did not matter. He shut down everybody this year. He had 1 bad game against the Cardinals out of his 22, 23 appearances. He had 1 bad game. And then for him to tip pitches in the most important game of the season for the Brewers, and just to watch Pete Alonso, where his own fan base was calling for him to just be done, that they were happy that this is going to be his last game as a New York Met, to call him a fat slob, for him to go up there after dropping one of the easiest pop-ups you could imagine, and for him to hit a home run. Like, it was, I muted the TV when they started replaying the Alonso home run. I think it was probably 4 times that they replayed it in the next 2 minutes, which, I mean, understandably, it was a huge home run. But I muted it. I couldn't hear him talk about it. And then to go to that bottom of the 9th, Sal Frelick, he leads it off with a single. Sal played his heart out, man. As much as I've said where the potential with Sal is low, boy, that he plays with more heart than anybody I've seen put on a Brewers uniform. Like, it is incredible how hard that guy plays. He leads it off with a single. Joey Ortiz goes down with a tough strikeout. Then Bryce Terang hits a line drive ground ball over to short. Francisco Lindor turns a double play, and the season's over. I had the TV muted from the entire time because when it felt like a movie, and that the Brewers were portrayed as the bad guy. And the Mets, they've had just a crazy, weird, incredible season as well. Like, I can't feel good for them, but I can tell you it's a good story. It's a hell of a story. But it's just the Brewers have ended up on the wrong end of so many of these great stories. It's getting pretty tiring. I'm getting pretty sick of it. But there will be baseball again. It's just we're going to have to wait until spring. see if the Brewers can go back and take another shot at winning the last game of the season. Switch gears a little bit. Some more sad news. Chez Mellusi, star running back for the Wisconsin Badgers, is stepping away from the team. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries, dealing with a little bit too much. He says he's not going to be able to play football in the near future. So Chez Mellusi's year is probably done. Satawe Walker and Cade Yakimelli are going to get more opportunities at the running back position for the Badgers. 2-2 Badgers are going to be at home, and they will take on Purdue tomorrow at 11 a.m. That should be a game that they win. So maybe you can cheer yourself up a little bit, or maybe Wisconsin can find a way to break your heart a little bit more. Well, who knows what can happen. But Purdue at the Badgers tomorrow. Wisconsin will be without Chez Mellusi due to injury for the near future. And then going on to Sunday, this is where I'm turning my head to. This is where all my sports fandom is going to go to until the Milwaukee Bucks take the court. Green Bay Packers will be taking on the LA Rams. I have the injury report here, as Jair Alexander actually has started practicing. Once again, he was limited on Thursday. Kenny Clark did not practice Wednesday, was limited Thursday. Edgerrin Cooper and Romeo Doubs, neither of those guys practiced. Cooper is dealing with a hip injury. Doubs has a personal reason as to why he wasn't, so I don't believe it's an injury for Doubs, and we should expect him to play on Sunday. Elgin Jenkins practiced limited on Thursday. Jordan Love went through a full practice on Thursday. He looks good. I don't think you have to worry about anything there. Jordan Morgan, first-round offensive lineman. He was limited. Should expect to see him. Luke Musgrave out with an ankle injury. He did not practice on Thursday, so not really great look. We'll see how practice goes today, but I wouldn't cross your fingers on him. Carrington Valentine was limited. That is very big news because you have both Jair and Carrington Valentine practicing on Thursday. That's really big stuff. You could see how big of a difference it was that those guys were not in the lineup last week against Minnesota. So defensive secondary going to look a lot sharper, I would believe, when it comes to Sunday. Christian Watson did not practice, dealing with that ankle injury, and Devontae Wyatt also with an ankle did not practice. So team's pretty banged up right now for the Packers. You hope to see Kenny, Jair, Romeo, and Elgin Jenkins should be there. Of course, you love that Jordan Love is there, but the team's pretty banged up. But I do expect them to take on I wouldn't say more banged up, but they have some star players that are out for LA. Cooper Kupp did not practice on Thursday. He's probably one of the best receivers in the NFL. And Puka Nacua had a great season last year. He is on the IR for them. So their offensive weapons, they're pretty down. They have a good running back in Kyron Williams, and of course a good quarterback that we're used to in Matthew Stafford. But they're a hurt Rams team, and I think the Packers are ready to bounce back. They're 2-2, but I think they've played a lot better than 2-2, and I think they're ready to go out there and show what they're capable of. So sad for me to say, no more Brewers baseball that we have to worry about until it comes to next early April when the baseball season comes back. The Badgers will be at home against Purdue, 11 a.m. tomorrow, and then the Packers will play on Sunday. I'll get the start time for that. Sorry, a little bit behind here on my research. The Packers will be at L.A. Sunday, October 6th at 3:25 p.m. will be kickoff. So 11 for the Badgers tomorrow, then 3:25 on Sunday for Packers at Rams. Well, I hope all of us, including myself, can understand that our sports fandom is just that. It's a game. It's just sports. I'm going to try to not let it affect my mood. I get to broadcast some high school football once again tonight. That's always a great time. Get to go talk some sports with the sports lead at 3 o'clock today. We're gonna go have some fun. We're gonna enjoy it because that's what sports are for. When it comes to the Brewers, it hurts, but baseball will be back again, and hopefully we can forget about it soon enough. I won't forget about this for the rest of my life. But life will move on. We will get Brewers baseball again. And now we get football, and then the Bucks will be back soon. It should be an exciting season for them once again. So I'm Cody Deppius, your host, and I want to thank you once again for being with us. We'll see you next Monday for another edition of A Little Bit of Cheese, your daily bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast.